The studio lights burned bright, casting long shadows across the stage as the moderator announced the night's debate. But before the cameras could settle, the tension was already palpable. Donald Trump leaned back in his chair with that familiar smirk, arms folded, eyes darting toward Denzel Washington as if daring him to speak. Denzel didn't wait. He leaned forward, voice sharp, carrying the weight of a man who'd seen enough smoke and mirrors. The report is out, Donald. America's economy isn't roaring like you keep shouting, it's buckling. And for once, you can't spin numbers the way you spin your rallies. The audience buzzed, whispers cutting through the silence. Trump sat up straight, his jaw tight. Fake news, he barked, his hand slamming on the table. I built the greatest economy in history, and everyone knows it. But Denzel cut him off, his words slicing through the noise. Greatest economy? Then why does this report show record bankruptcies, collapsing wages, and small businesses buried under debt? You didn't build an economy, Donald, you hollowed it out to look good in a photo op. Gasps filled the air as the camera zoomed in, catching every flicker of unease on Trump's face. Denzel's voice rose, steady but commanding, echoing like a verdict. You promised strength. What you delivered was a facade. And now the numbers tell the truth. The empire of gold you brag about? It's fool's gold. And tonight, America gets to see who you really are. The crowd erupted, some cheering, others jeering, as Trump's hands clenched the sides of his chair. For the first time, the spotlight wasn't his, it was the truth, and it was crushing him. The studio lights blazed hotter as the tension deepened. Trump leaned forward, waving the report in his hand like a weapon, his face flushed red with defiance. This report is trash, just another hit job from people who hate me. Look at the stock market, best numbers ever under me. Everyone knows it. His voice grew louder, drowning out the gasps from the audience. He jabbed the air with his finger as if stabbing invisible enemies. Denzel, calm yet sharp as a blade, didn't let Trump's bluster unsettle him. He sat back in his chair, tilted his head slightly, and let the silence stretch until the crowd grew restless. Then, in a low but commanding tone, he cut in, you keep waving paper like it erases reality. But tell that to the families who can't pay rent. Tell it to the small business owners closing their doors. Numbers don't lie, but you do. The words landed with weight. The audience erupted, some with cheers, others with boos, but all glued to the clash unfolding. Trump banged the desk, his voice cracking, I built the strongest economy the world has ever seen. Without me, America collapses. His attempt to reclaim dominance only fueled Denzel's reply. Strong economies don't collapse from one man leaving office, Denzel shot back, his voice rising just enough to slice through the noise. If the whole system depends on you, then it was never strong to begin with. It was fragile, like your promises, built on sand, not stone. The studio shook with applause. Even those who once doubted Denzel leaned in closer, realizing he was putting words to what millions felt but hadn't said aloud. Trump's smile twitched nervously, betraying the cracks in his confidence. Backhand index pointing right. The clash was no longer about numbers. It had become a moral battleground, truth versus spin, accountability versus denial. And Denzel wasn't letting go. Trump straightened his tie, his lips curling into a forced grin, but his eyes betrayed panic. Denzel, you don't understand economics. You're an actor, stick to Hollywood. Running a country takes genius, and I'm the genius. He slammed the report on the table for emphasis, the sound echoing across the studio like a gunshot. The audience shifted uneasily, some booing, others clapping, as if they too weren't sure whether to laugh or recoil. Denzel leaned forward now, finally breaking the composed posture he had held. His gaze locked on Trump with the intensity of a courtroom prosecutor. Hollywood? His voice sharpened, slicing through the tension. At least in Hollywood we admit when we're putting on a show. You've turned America into a performance, one that's bleeding the people dry. Families aren't props, Donald. Veterans aren't extras. And the American dream is not your stage to sell tickets. The words cut deeper than any statistic. Gasps filled the room, followed by a wave of applause. Trump raised his hands, trying to wave it all away, his voice cracking under the pressure. That's fake news. I gave jobs, I gave tax cuts, I gave everything people wanted. His shouting only magnified the desperation behind his defense. Denzel didn't raise his voice, he didn't need to. His calm tone was a weapon in itself. You gave corporations a payday and left the working class with crumbs. You lined the pockets of the rich and left everyone else chasing shadows. That's not leadership, it's betrayal. The audience erupted again, the word betrayal ricocheting around the studio like a spark in dry wood. Cameras zoomed in on Trump's face, catching the flicker of fear beneath his bravado. For the first time, the unstoppable showman looked small, cornered, and exposed. Backhand index pointing right, the battle lines had been drawn. This was no longer about policy, it was about Trump's character, and Denzel was stripping it bare in real time. Trump straightened his tie, his face flushed red under the studio lights. "You're a fraud, Denzel," he barked. "An actor pretending to be a politician. Nobody cares about your lectures. I built towers. I made deals. I created an empire while you just played make-believe on a screen." The crowd gasped, some booing, some clapping at Trump's defiance. But Denzel didn't flinch. He leaned back in his chair, shook his head slowly, and delivered the kind of line that landed like a hammer. "You built towers, sure. But you built them with other people's sweat, other people's money. And when it was time to pay them, you cheated. Just like you cheated the office of the presidency. You call me an actor? You've been acting your entire life, Donald. Playing the role of a businessman, playing the role of a leader, and failing at both." The audience roared. Cameras flashed, the control room frantically cutting between Denzel's piercing stare and Trump's tightening jawline. Trump pointed a finger at him, his voice rising. "I made America strong. I gave power back to the people. You don't know what you're talking about." Denzel leaned forward, his voice calm but thunderous in its impact. "Strength isn't measured by how loud you shout or how many rallies you hold. Strength is measured by the truth you stand for. And the truth is this: America didn't get stronger under you, it got divided, bruised, and betrayed. And you were at the center of that betrayal." The crowd erupted, half cheering, half shouting. The moderator raised his hands, trying to calm the storm, but the studio had transformed into an arena. This wasn't just a debate anymore, it was a public reckoning. Trump's fists clenched on the table, his voice booming over the crowd. "You think you're some kind of savior? You're just another Hollywood elite who hates America because it doesn't worship you. You don't know what it takes to lead, because you've never carried the weight of real power." The words echoed, but Denzel was already leaning in, his eyes locked on Trump like a predator sizing up prey. The studio fell quiet as Denzel spoke, his voice steady, deliberate, like a blade cutting through steel. "You talk about power, Donald. But what good is power if it's only used for yourself? You've bankrupted businesses, cheated contractors, hollowed out workers' pensions, and walked away richer while they walked away ruined. That's not power. That's exploitation. And you brought that same game into the White House. You bankrupted morality just like you bankrupted your casinos." The crowd exploded. Gasps, cheers, shouts, it was chaos. The moderator's pen tapped nervously against the desk, but he didn't dare cut Denzel off. Trump's face twisted with rage. "Lies. All lies. I made this country great again." But Denzel raised a hand and the room fell silent, his voice cutting across Trump's bluster. "No, you made it fragile. You turned America into a brand, plastered your name across it, then sold it cheap to the highest bidder. That's not leadership. That's betrayal dressed up as business. And the people are done paying the price." The audience erupted in thunderous applause. Some stood to their feet. Trump's jaw tightened as he tried to force a smile, but it came off as hollow. His control was slipping, and everyone watching knew it. This wasn't just Denzel debating Trump, it was Denzel tearing down the image Trump had built around himself for decades, brick by brick, lie by lie. Trump slammed his hand on the table, the microphone rattling. His face was flushed, his words spilling faster, louder, desperate. You think you can lecture me? I built towers, I built an empire. I sat in the most powerful office in the world. What have you done, huh? Movies? Speeches? You don't know the first thing about running a nation. The room went still. Cameras zoomed closer, catching every bead of sweat on Trump's forehead. Denzel didn't move at first, he let the silence hang, let Trump's fury echo and burn itself out. Then he leaned back in his chair, almost calm, and spoke with a voice that felt like judgment. You built towers, Donald, but you never built trust. You built an empire, but it was on lies. You ran an office, but you never served the people in it. Leadership isn't about plastering your name on steel and concrete, it's about lifting up the people who put their faith in you. And every time they trusted you, you cashed it in for yourself. The audience erupted, half cheering, half shouting, the sound shaking the studio. Trump tried to interrupt, but Denzel's voice only grew steadier. You claim greatness, but real greatness leaves a legacy people can stand on. Yours is nothing but foreclosures, lawsuits, and broken promises. That's not a nation, it's a scam with your name stamped on it. Trump's eyes widened, for the first time, he looked cornered. He tried to fire back, that's not true, it's fake news, fake news. But the words rang hollow. The crowd wasn't buying it. Denzel leaned forward, his gaze unflinching. You can shout fake all you want, but the truth doesn't need your approval. It stands. And tonight, everyone sees it. The roar of the crowd was deafening. Trump's fists trembled on the table. His empire of words, once unshakable, was crumbling live, under the weight of truth. The moderator's voice tried to cut through the chaos. Gentlemen, please, let's keep this civil, but his words drowned in the storm. Trump had lurched forward, pointing a trembling finger across the table at Denzel. His voice cracked, shrill, carrying none of the control he once commanded. You're nothing but a pretender. A Hollywood puppet lecturing me on power. You don't know sacrifice. You don't know the price of leadership. Gasps rippled through the audience. Some clapped nervously, others booed, the entire studio on edge. Denzel didn't flinch. He let Trump's rant spiral higher, then cut it down with a measured calm that struck harder than any shout. Sacrifice? You don't know the word. Sacrifice is veterans buried in silence while you mocked them. Sacrifice is workers cheated while you padded your pockets. Sacrifice is communities abandoned while you built a brand off their pain. That's sacrifice, Donald, and you never carried any of it. The crowd erupted, a tidal wave of applause mixed with furious shouts. Trump pounded the table so hard the microphone screeched, his words tumbling over themselves. Lies. All lies. I gave more to this country than anyone, more than anyone. The moderator raised his hands, voice cracking, Mr. Trump, control yourself, but Trump wasn't listening. His face burned red, eyes wild, his voice losing rhythm, sliding into incoherence. The control he once prided himself on was slipping away in real time. Meanwhile, Denzel stayed still. He didn't need theatrics, didn't need volume. His calm was the weapon. He leaned closer, his voice slicing through the chaos like a blade. The louder you yell, the more America sees the truth, a man terrified of being exposed. The audience exploded again, cheers, shouts, chants flooding the air. For the first time, the cameras caught it, Trump wasn't just angry. He looked rattled, cornered, afraid. The air inside the studio had shifted, thick, electric, dangerous. The crowd wasn't just reacting anymore, they were participating. Chants rose from the back rows, first scattered, then swelling into a single rhythm that shook the cameras. Tell the truth. Tell the truth. Trump's eyes darted around, panic flickering beneath the fury. He slammed his hand down again, trying to drown them out with sheer volume. They're lying. All of them. Fake news, fake outrage, fake. His voice cracked on the last word, drawing laughter from parts of the audience that cut deeper than any insult. Denzel turned toward the crowd, acknowledging their chant with a small nod. Then, slowly, he fixed his eyes back on Trump. His voice came low but clear, every syllable deliberate. Listen to them, Donald. That's America talking. Not your polls, not your rallies, real people. They're tired of the excuses, tired of the drama, tired of watching a man crumble while pretending to lead. The chant thundered louder, the studio walls trembling with it. Trump tried to shout over them, waving his hands, pointing fingers, but his words collapsed into fragments. I built, I gave, no one, more than me. Cameras zoomed in on his face, flushed, sweat gathering at his temples. He looked less like a leader and more like a man unraveling live on air. Denzel didn't move, didn't raise his voice. He simply leaned forward, his presence commanding silence from those closest to the stage. America doesn't need a brand, Donald. It needs a backbone. And that's something you can't buy, can't fake, and can't scream into existence. For a heartbeat, the entire studio froze. Then, like a dam breaking, the audience roared, the chant mutating into something sharper. Step down. Step down. Trump's jaw locked, his eyes wide, the fury in him battling with the unmistakable fear that the walls were closing in. Trump's face had gone pale, his shoulders tightening as if he could hold the whole room back with brute defiance. He jabbed his finger toward the cameras, his voice breaking between rage and desperation. They want me gone because I'm the strongest president you've ever had. Strongest. And you. He spun back toward Denzel, you're just an actor reading lines someone else wrote. You don't know sacrifice. You don't know leadership. You don't know me. The words echoed hollow. The audience didn't flinch. Some even laughed bitterly, their chant hammering the studio like a drumbeat. Step down. Step down. Denzel leaned back in his chair, calm, measured, but his eyes burned like a man who had already won. He let Trump's rant hang in the air for a long, uncomfortable second before speaking. You think strength is shouting louder than everyone else. You think leadership is bullying people into silence. But the truth is, Donald, the loudest man in the room is usually the weakest. The crowd erupted, stomping feet now joining the chant. Step down. Step down. The studio shook with the sound of a country fed up. Trump tried again, his voice cracking. I built towers. I made deals. But the words died in his throat as the audience drowned him out. The sweat was visible now, streaking down his forehead under the harsh studio lights. He tugged at his collar like the air was thinning. Denzel didn't let him breathe. His voice cut through the noise, sharp and final. You didn't build a nation. You built a lie. And now America is tearing it down, piece by piece, word by word, right here, right now. A wave of applause rolled like thunder. Trump froze, fists clenched, mouth open but empty. The chant surged again, step down. An anthem of rejection. And for the first time, the cameras caught it, not anger, not defiance, fear flashing across Trump's face. The roar of the crowd was deafening, but Denzel raised a single hand, and the studio fell into a tense silence. Every eye fixed on him, waiting for the final strike. He leaned forward, his tone low, deliberate, slicing through the noise like a blade. Donald, he said, voice heavy with truth, history will not remember your buildings. It will not remember your branding or your rallies. History will remember this, a man who had the chance to lift his country and chose instead to drag it down. You could have been a leader. Instead, you became America's warning. The silence cracked with gasps. Trump's face twisted, mouth twitching as if words might save him, but nothing came. He slammed a fist on the table, rattling the microphones. I am the leader. Nobody's done more, nobody. His voice cracked under the weight of desperation. Denzel didn't blink. Leaders inspire. Dictators demand. Frauds pretend. Tonight, America sees which one you are. The studio exploded, applause, cheers, a chant pounding like a heartbeat, truth. 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 The sound carried through the cameras into living rooms across the country, where millions watched a man once thought untouchable get stripped bare in real time. Trump tried to rise, but his knees buckled slightly under the weight of the moment. The image froze on screens everywhere, Denzel upright, calm, the embodiment of conviction. Trump hunched, sweating, drowning in his own unraveling. As the crowd roared, Denzel delivered the final blow, each word etched like stone. You didn't fail because America was against you. You failed because you were never for America. The eruption was seismic. Chants shook the walls, trending hashtags lit up instantly, and somewhere deep inside, Trump's silence confirmed what the nation had already decided. The fight was over. America, tonight wasn't just a debate. It was a mirror. Denzel spoke what millions have been screaming in silence, that leadership isn't about power, it's about service, and Trump failed both tests. When truth stands tall, lies collapse. Remember this moment, because history surely will.